Hi, my name is Akila and I just got back from vacation in Mexico. And as you can tell from the title, a lot of stuff happened. Let's debrief. So, the original trip. My mom kept talking about going somewhere for 4th of July and she decided let's go to Cancun. That was very random to me because this was only my second time going out the country, but I was very excited. So we booked the trip in June, and it wasn't until the days got closer and closer to the upcoming vacation that we're hearing about Hurricane Beryl. I'm watching the news with my mom and we see it's in Jamaica, and it did really bad damage to Jamaica and the other Caribbean islands. So keep them in your prayers. But yeah, it was very bad there, and it was moving up to the Yucatan Peninsula, which is the area we were in, because of course, just from watching the news and everything, we realized bruh, a hurricane is about to hit Cancun and we're going there tomorrow.
That's eyelashes, blank stare.
A lot of our family and friends were kind of nervous for us because it sounds mad dumb flying into a country when a hurricane is about to hit, but my mom had already paid for the plane ticket and the hotel and all of that. There's no refund. And we went to go on vacation. So, we took the risk and just went there. And there was barely anybody on our flight. There was probably half the amount of people that the plane could hold. So that kind of gives you an idea. A lot of people left. When we got to the resort, there was not a lot of people there. A lot less than I was expecting. But yeah. So when we landed in Cancun, the weather was actually nice. It was sunny outside and a pretty normal day. The hurricane wasn't supposed to come in until about 5 a.m. through 7 a.m. and the next morning. My mom and I went to our room, changed, put on our bathing suits, and got in the pool. And they still had the bar going in the pool. So, we got our drinks and stuff. And we just had a good time. We tried to have as much fun as we could before it started raining, because we were in the pool for only an hour and that's when the rain started. And so also we were on a time crunch because there was only one restaurant open on the resort, which was the buffet restaurant, and it was only open until 7 p.m. And by the time we got out the pool, it was about 5. So we had to go shower, get changed, and go eat, because once the restaurant closed, there's nothing else to eat for the night. The resort had other restaurants, but none of them were operating because the whole staff was preparing for the hurricane. There was a lot of glass doors around the resort, and they started putting up wood boards and boarding up a good bit of the resort. They had to take down the hanging light fixtures, and they moved all of the furniture that was by the pool and put it inside somewhere. So the whole resort staff was just very busy preparing. After we ate our dinner, we had to go back in our room, and we basically just had to stay in our room until the next day. I think around 12 to 1 p.m. was when they said things would start opening up again. So of course I'm getting a little bit nervous because I'm just dang, they're taking a lot of precautions. Maybe this is more serious than I thought. Since the dinner place closed at 7 o'clock, they brought around boxes for us. Inside they had a sandwich, basically a sub, and some chips and cookies. And my mom and I couldn't eat the sandwiches because they were ham sandwiches and we don't eat pork, so that was that. But yeah, so we had to stay in our room. They basically just told us to watch TV and just be in the room. So they had some channels. My mom and I watched a few movies and stuff, but it started raining so hard that eventually the power went out. It came back really quickly, but the power was kind of in and out. And also we lost TV signal. So we went to bed pretty early that night. We went to bed at 9:30 because there was nothing to do. The storm had definitely picked up from when it was raining earlier in the pool. At this point, it was pouring rain and it was super windy, and the wind was blowing the rain onto our balcony and onto our glass door, and you can hear it outside, all the wind and rain hitting the door and stuff like that. We went to go look out the window, and our balcony floor was just covered in water. You can see the water moving outside. So there was a lot. You see the palm trees basically bending in the wind, and yeah, there's a lot going on. It was kind of a regular thunderstorm, but with a lot of wind.
Hurricane Beryl is coming through. He has made it to Mexico.
Next morning we wake up. It wasn't raining as hard as it was last night, but it was still wet outside and pretty windy. So we had tried to get room service because, like I said, we weren't supposed to leave our room. My mom ordered it and it didn't come. We had waited about an hour, so we called to see like where our food was at. And when we called them on the phone, they said that they weren't doing room service because of the wind, but they said that the same buffet style restaurant from the night before was actually open for breakfast. So my mom and I walked down there, and we were walking through like the crazy wind and stuff, so that was pretty interesting. But yeah, the weather had stayed like that for a few more hours, so my mom and I ended up going to the gym that they had on the resort because there was still no TV. Like, there was literally just nothing to do, and they still wanted us to be like in our rooms, you know, inside. By about maybe 1 or 2 o'clock, the weather got nice again. Like, it was like nowhere near as windy, and it wasn't raining anymore, and people started going back in the pool, and the resort just started opening back up like nothing really happened, you know. The bars started going again, the entertainers came back out, and they started taking down the boards, and yeah, everything just went back to normal after that. So that was my experience being in the hurricane. So that was basically our arrival and the first day there. So then our second day was our only real full day that we got because the other one full day that we had was messed up by the hurricane. So my mom and I had booked an excursion the night before, and she was talking about how she wanted to go horseback riding, but we found a place that you could horseback ride, ATV ride, zip line, and they had a cenote. And if you don't know what that is, it's kind of like a cave with a little swimming hole in it. So yeah, so we got to do all of that stuff, and it was really cool. It was a good experience. I really liked everything. But I took some L's this day because, for one, I jumped into the cenote. It was a 21-foot jump, and I lost my Apple Watch. I totally forgot that I had it on. I didn't even think that it would fall off, really, because I've worn it on roller coasters. I wear it, well, I used to wear it all the time, and I never had any issues with it falling off. So I don't know, it was sad. I was sad when I realized I lost it because it probably fell off right after I jumped, and I stayed in there for probably about like 15 more minutes, and then I got out and I went to go look at my wrist to see what time it was, and I was like, damn, I don't have my watch on. So that sucked. But while we were there, we actually talked to this couple who stayed in a resort that was near ours, and they said during the hurricane they made everybody sleep on mats in the hibachi restaurant, including the staff workers, and they just had them all in the hibachi restaurant. They weren't allowed to leave and they stayed there until the weather got better. So honestly, I'm glad at my resort they let us just stay in our rooms, because that's crazy. I would not want to do that. Just moving around a lot, and I had switched my shoes because the cenote obviously was wet, and I had on sneakers for the other activities. So I switched my shoes to my slides, and I ended up forgetting my black Vapor Max at the place, which was so sad because I wanted those shoes so badly. When I got them back in 9th grade, I got them for Christmas, and I wanted them so badly. I wore them all the time because they were black, you know, they just go with everything. And unfortunately, I left them in Mexico, so I took 2 L's at the place. But I had a lot of fun, so I would say it was worth it, but dang, I wish I would have thought more. Also, I had just bought a new setting spray before I went on that trip, and somehow I left it in the hotel. I searched my suitcase up, down, all around, could not find it, so I don't even know how I did that. So yeah, that's just my series of L's that were taken on the trip. And now for the final part of this video, which is the airport nightmare that my mom and I had to go through just to come back home. To them, she woke me up at 6 a.m., got up, got dressed, got everything packed, and we were ready to go by 6:30. And we got in our shuttle, went to the airport, got in line, you know, did everything. Our flight to Atlanta was supposed to leave at 10:30, I believe, but they told us that it had been delayed when we were checking our bags and stuff. We got to the gate about 2 hours early, and we were just sitting at the gate, and I was just like, dang, we have all this time to kill. I could sit here and watch a movie, I could watch YouTube, you know. I was just thinking of things I could do to keep myself entertained, and I'm not really paying attention to my surroundings too much, you know, because I'm just like, okay, we're in the right place, so we just have to wait on the plane to get here. But time is going by, it's getting closer. At this point, it's like 10:30, and I'm like, okay, there's no plane at the gate yet, but I'm not thinking too much about it because they said the flight was delayed, and my mom, I don't know, she was doing her own thing. But the more and more we're sitting there, my mom was just like, I wonder where the plane is. Like, the plane comes to the gate, and I told my mom, oh, look, there's the plane. Like, we're probably gonna start boarding soon, blah, blah, blah. And at this point, it's probably like 11 maybe, because they did tell us our flight was delayed by 30 minutes. So honestly, the time was adding up in my head. But they have the screens above the gate or whatever, and they were off for the majority of the time that we were sitting there. But I look up and I see this screen says that the flight is going to Oklahoma. So I'm like, what? So I look at my mom and I tell her, I was like, that says this plane is going to Oklahoma. What is going on? So my mom, of course, freaks out, and we run up to the counter where the flight people are working, and we're telling them, where is the plane to Atlanta? Because we're like, our boarding pass says gate 65, and this says that this plane is going to Oklahoma. And the people were like, oh, we made an announcement. This gate switched to gate 64. And me and my mom were like, an announcement? Like, y'all must have whispered this announcement, because I didn't hear anything. She didn't hear anything. Nobody heard anything. I was like, when? I need the time, the exact time that you said the announcement, because it was not heard. They were like, we made an announcement that the gate switched to gate 64, and we were standing at gate 64 when we were talking to these people, and the plane was still outside. So my mom was just like, well, can we get on the plane? And they were like, they used their walkie-talkie to communicate with the people on the plane, I guess. And they were saying, no, we couldn't get on the plane because it's already like closed. The door is already closed. I don't work for an airline or anything, airport stuff. So of course I don't understand the inner workings. But what I don't get is why it's so difficult to just open the door. You're saying the door is closed, open it back up. Like, it's not going to take that long for two people to walk on the plane. You open the door, let us on, close the door back. They're doing all this chit chat. I'm like, this whole time y'all are sitting here talking, the plane is still there. So what is stopping us from getting on the plane? The only thing stopping me from getting on the plane is you telling me I can't get on the plane. And it's there, so I can. Like, I'm just not understanding. And they're like, well, the only other flight we have to Atlanta has a connection in Midway. And we were like, Midway, what is that? Like, never heard of that. Then they're like, yeah, you know, Midway, Chicago. And oh my gosh. Like, at this point, my mom lost it. And I was just, like, I was trying to be chill, but I was just standing there like, Chicago? So basically what they were saying was we had to take a flight to Chicago and then connect to get to Atlanta. And it was so frustrating because it's like, bro, Chicago is so far away from Atlanta. It's in a whole different region. It's in the North Midwest, and we're down here, like, and then Cancun is like here. So we could have gone, did a little diagonal. Now we're going up, down, making a triangle. Like, no, why am I flying to Chicago? What is going on? And I'm not gonna lie, like, threw off my whole day because I had class, because this was a Sunday, that we were coming back to Atlanta. So I had class the next day, I had work, I had to take a quiz in my math class that I didn't even get to study for because I was on vacation. So I was gonna come home. I was supposed to be home probably by around 3 o'clock. So I would have a lot of my day left. So I was gonna come home, study for my test, you know, get locked in, get ready for the week. And that just threw off our plans completely. So they printed us new boarding passes, and the next flight, well, the flight to Chicago wasn't until 2 hours later. So now it's just like, dang, we have time to kill. So I actually went and got some fried rice to eat because I hadn't ate the whole time we were there. And the fried rice was really good. It was kind of like a airport hibachi place. Like, I don't know how y'all feel about that, but it tasted good, and that's all I'm gonna say. But yeah, after I ate, we went back to the gate and just waited on the Chicago flight. Then we get on the airplane to go to Chicago, and y'all, guess freaking what? We get on the plane to go to Chicago. First of all, when they gave us the new boarding passes, we were flying on Southwest, and if you don't know, Southwest is first come, first serve, and you board by like groups, so you get A, B, C. And the boarding passes that the Southwest people gave us had group C boarding, which means we were the last to board. And when you're in group C, baby, you most of the time end up with like the middle seat, and you just have to sit wherever you can. And I could not find a seat on the plane. There was a flight attendant who was taking up a space because I guess he didn't want to stand in the aisle, but he was like standing in the way of a seat. So I said, excuse me, can you move so I can sit down? And he was like, are you okay with sitting in the exit? Then my mom chimes in and she's like, oh, what do you mean by that? Because I don't know. I was just like, I just said, yeah, like, why wouldn't I? And then my mom was just like, well, it's a C, what's wrong with sitting things, blah, blah, blah. And he was like, well, there's just like certain requirements if you're gonna sit in the exit seat. And then my mom was like, well, what are they? And the first thing he said was, you have to at least be 15. And my mom was like, well, she's 19. Because, bro, the amount of times on this trip my age has been questioned. Because if you remember, I said we talked to that couple when we were at the zip line horseback riding place. They were talking about their resort, and they were talking about how it was an adults only resort. And my mom was like, oh, ours is too. And they're like, oh, did they make like an exception for her or something? And then my mom was like, oh, she's 19. And they were like, what? I thought you were younger. Like, I don't know, y'all. I think I must look like a little ass kid. Like, I don't know. But yeah, so then my mom had told the guy, she was like, well, she's 19, so she could sit there. And then the guy was like, oh, okay, you don't need to get like that with me. Like, y'all, this day was just... And so she's like, no, it's not like that. They were like going back and forth, but like not at the same time. It was just like, bruh, can I just sit down? Like, I just want to put my butt in a seat. Why are we doing all this? So yeah, my mom was sitting in the exit seat, and then I was able to sit kind of like across from her next to these two guys. But all of that drama over a seat. The flight attendants come on the little phone and they're speaking to the cabin, and they're like, we just did our count and we can't take off because we have one more person on this plane than we're supposed to. So everybody look at your boarding pass. Whoever is not supposed to be on the plane, please get off. Nobody got off the plane. So they keep walking up and down the plane, counting people, trying to see who's here and all of that. They keep getting the same number, but they keep counting us again and again. And it's just like, bro. So then they're like, okay, guys, we're going to come around this time. How about your passport? And so they have a list of all the names of the people who are supposed to be on the flight, and they're checking off the names one by one. Why they didn't do that to begin with, once they realized that they didn't have the correct number, I don't know. But literally, as soon as they did that, they found out who the guy was. The guy had to get off the plane. I don't know what he did once he got off, because he ended up getting back on. But this whole thing took 2 hours. And I wish I was exaggerating, because as I'm telling the story, it probably sounds like, how does it take them 2 hours to count people? And I don't know. Like, now that I'm thinking about it, what about that took 2 hours? I don't know. But we were sitting in the plane for 2 hours. The air on the plane also was not working. Everybody's fanning themselves with the stupid safety manual that nobody ever looks at. And it's hot. It's hot and people are annoyed. And at this point, our day is just even more delayed. And it was just, I was in a bad mood. Like, I was really trying to stay resilient and not be mad and, just try to be chill. I'm like, maybe there's a reason why we missed our flight, and maybe there's a reason why we have to go to Chicago. And after the delay, we finally take off and we get to Chicago. When we get to Chicago, they come on the phone again and speak to the cabin, and the flight attendants are like, oh yeah, the flight to Atlanta is delayed, but you need to hurry up because you might miss your flight. I'm just like, what? Because at this point, we can't miss another flight to Atlanta. Like, we don't get on that flight, I'm never going home. So yeah, they were like, if you have the connecting flight to Atlanta, you need to go. And they were talking about how we had to go to the first floor, go back out, and go back through security, and talking about how we have to go through customs and all of that. And so my mom was stressed because she didn't want to miss the flight again. So at this point, we're literally running through the airport, didn't know where to go. So then my mom stopped to talk to this one lady working, and she was like, how do we get back to security? Basically, it was like, how do we get back in the airport because we need to catch a connecting flight. And the lady was telling us we need to get our luggage from baggage claim. And my mom and I had both thought that our suitcase was on the original flight that we were supposed to take to Atlanta because we couldn't get on the flight, but we thought since we checked our bags that our bag was still on the flight. And so we had assumed that our bag was already in Atlanta. Foreshadowing, because yeah, keep in mind we assumed, okay? So we were telling the lady, oh, we don't need any luggage, we don't have any checked bags, we were just trying to get back to security. And she was not listening. She was just like, no, you need to get your bag first. And we were like, we don't have a checked bag, how do we get to security? Like, she was not helping. So finally, after saying it to her like 4 times, she finally told us like which way to go to get to the airport security. Then we get to the security. I don't know why the line was moving slow for this man to like check people's IDs and stuff, but he was talking to my mom and he was like, okay, I'll take the little ones next. And my mom was looking around and she was like, the little one. And she was like, who are you talking about? He was talking about me. And then my mom, oh my gosh, at this point she was fed up. She was like, she's 19. I was just like, bro, like, what is up with this? Like, I guess I'm gonna look really good when I get old. Like, the baby face, I don't know, y'all. I really don't know what all of this was about, this trip, because I started to get a little insecure. I was like, oh my gosh, do I really look this childish? Like, I need to switch something up. We go through security in Chicago, we go to our gate and everything's fine. We get to our gate early. We had about 40 minutes to spare. It was okay. They scared us, the flight attendants scared us, but it was okay. So we went to go get something to eat, and then we get on the flight back to Atlanta. And on this flight, once again, we were in boarding group C, so had similar issues with trying to find a seat. It was really full. I had walked all the way down, came back up. The flight attendant was like, oh, are you looking for somewhere to put your bag? I said, no, I need a seat. So then she says to her coworker, she's like, let me get 2 jumper seats. I was like, a jumper seat? I don't know what that is, honestly, but what it sounds like to me is a little foldable pop-up chair, and I'm not trying to fly in a lawn chair. Like, I need a seat. So then this flight attendant realizes that there's this fat man taking up 2 seats on the airplane, and she's like, oh, you can sit with him. And she was like, sir, you can't take up 2 seats, you need to scoot over. I looked, because my mom was already sitting down, I looked at my mom and I was like, let's switch. And she said, okay, you know, she didn't know what she was getting into, but she looked at me so mad because, bro, I'm not, if this man is big enough to take up 2 seats, I'm not gonna have any personal space. I don't want to sit next to him. And so he actually had like a kid with him. The kid was sitting in the window seat. So they switched around. The flight attendant told the man to sit in the window, let the kid sit in the middle, and my mom sit on the outside. So it ended up working out for her. But yeah, if they had the original seating arrangement, I'm sorry, but I was just not going to sit next to that man, because if you're big enough to take up 2 seats, then you're definitely going to be in my personal space, and I don't want that. So I ended up just sitting in between this random lady and this man, and I sit down and the lady was like, oh, you didn't want to sit there? Because she was paying attention to the whole thing. And I was just like, don't even do that. Like, I was just like, no, I did not. It's like, why are you talking to me about this? So the flight from Chicago to Atlanta was only about an hour and a half, which I was worried about. I thought it would be longer because, I don't know, maybe I'm not remembering my geography well, but I swear Chicago is just really far away from Atlanta. And then I also thought the flight from Cancun to Chicago would be longer. It was about 3 hours, maybe 3.5, but it wasn't that bad. I like slept and watched a movie or two. So by the time we land in Atlanta, it's about 10:30, and I'm kind of thrilled because I'm like, what? How is it 10:30? Because I knew that Chicago was an hour behind Atlanta and Cancun was also an hour behind Atlanta. So I don't know, the time is just all over the place at this point, because we were originally supposed to get on our flight to Atlanta at 6:30 according to our boarding pass, but we probably got on like an hour later because the Atlanta flight was delayed because of the delay that we had in Cancun. Like, it was just so much going on. So yeah, so it's about 10:30, we're in Atlanta and it's storming outside, and I'm just like, dang, because I had on sandals, I did not have a jacket, no hood, no umbrella. I'm about to be raw dogging this storm, okay? We get off the plane and we go to baggage claim, and like I said earlier in the story, my mom and I had assumed that our suitcase was on our original flight from Cancun to Atlanta because nobody in Mexico told us that they took our luggage off of the flight as well. So we go to the Southwest baggage service and we're talking to the lady at the desk and we're saying, hey, we're here to get our suitcase. And she's like, oh, okay, what's your tag, blah blah blah. So we give her the information and she types it in the computer and she's like, it looks like your bag is in Midway. Bro, when I tell you I was about to tweak, like, this was the freaking cherry on top of this terrible experience. I've had bad airport experiences before, but this one takes the cake. My mom at this point was fed up and she like was low-key cursing out the worker. Well, she wasn't cursing her out, but she was just like mad. And she's just like, what do you mean the bag is in Chicago? Nobody communicated to us. She was like, you guys have terrible communication to your customers because nobody told us that the bag wasn't on the original flight, blah, 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 blah. And so, yeah, we never got the bag when we were in Chicago. We never got the bag from baggage claim because we didn't know the bag was in Chicago. But actually what ended up happening was, luckily Southwest, I guess, did a good job and they got our bag for us and made sure it got on the flight to Atlanta. But the problem with that was, since it was storming in Atlanta, there was lightning, thunder, like it was a real thunderstorm. And since there was lightning, they weren't unloading any bags. So nobody on the flight could get their bags. And they were like, oh, you guys have to wait until the lightning is over. At that point, my mom was just like, you don't need your bag that bad. We can get it tomorrow. And so we left the airport without our suitcase and got in an Uber and went to go pick up my sister. And then we finally made it home at 12 a.m. So we had a very long day. So then the next day, I went to go pick up the suitcase. I went to the airport. It was my first time driving to the airport by myself. I had a hard time at first. Like, I was like, okay, I looked up where to park. I came up with a plan in my head because I really wanted to be in and out. But I still had to ask for help because I could not find the baggage service, even though we were literally there the night before. But everything was just, it was a whole different perspective. Like, I don't know. But yeah, got the suitcase. Southwest ended up giving us a voucher for $200 to put towards another flight. But it was just a hot mess. It was a hot mess. It was too much to deal with. Like, yeah, a lot of stuff went down during this trip. A lot of stuff happened, but I had fun. It was a fun vacation. It's the only vacation I've been on this summer. It might be the only one I go on, so thankful to my mom for taking me on vacation. But good Lord, was there a lot of headache involved. But yeah, thank you for watching this video. Next video will be another story time. I'm still thinking about what I want to talk about because I have like some good story times, but some of them I want to save for when I start getting more viewers and stuff. But yeah, make sure y'all stay tuned on the channel for the juicy story times I have coming up. And thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate it. And if you're gonna subscribe, make sure you comment that so I can reply to your comment and personally thank you. I'll see y'all in the next one. Bye.